He's been a popular meme for WrestleTalk with the Drake Maverick thing. But he's also been like, it was a guy that when he came into WWE, they kind of pitched him as like, oh, you're the 205 Live GM. That's the role that we're going to put you in. You can wear your little wacky suits and you can do that. And then there was just this sort of turn where he suddenly became this comedy character for the 24/7 title, while also being a serious wrestler on 205 Live, feuding with Mike Kanellis. It was a weird little period for Drake Maverick.
Yeah, WWE still are in this kind of weird place with the cruiserweights where they'll treat them seriously on one show and then they'll use them completely as kind of prop comedy filler on another. Like Akira Tozawa, literally from 1 week to the next, was being squashed on Raw, but was putting in like 15 to 20-minute competitive matches with Kushida on NXT, and now he's the leader of a bunch of ninjas. You did, I do want to just correct your timeline a little bit. You did miss out the key bit in Drake Maverick's at WWE Live, which is when he managed AOP, of course.
Oh, yes, and the Bar and Big Show made him piss his pants.
And then he pissed on also Robert Roode's dressing gown on, I think, one of the worst episodes of Raw ever committed to film. So just a little important
You're absolutely
moment.
right. For clarity, we should get through. If we were to read his Wikipedia page, these details would be on there. So you're absolutely right. I did miss those crucial parts of his WWE run. I got to say though, like I got a bit of a kick out of the 24/7 stuff. I think that his feud with R-Truth has been the most interesting that belt has been.
Yeah, it hasn't approached anywhere near. Like when you got a sense that they were like. And I think the reports were saying that they were sort of given a bit of creative freedom to sort of book it themselves. Here's a toy, play with it. And it was like all the stuff with his like getting rolled up at his actual IRL wedding. Like that's real commitment to the bit. Him doing the kind of him being naked, but for the 24/7 title. Like that. Yeah, that little kind of macro feud was the best. And like one of the better feuds of the year, just in terms of just like escalation and like developing from week on week and doing stuff that constantly surprises you. I really like. I'm not going to say I miss that form of Drake Maverick because I think he's doing really good stuff in NXT, and that is the kind of Drake Maverick that I think a lot of people expected us to get when we got Rockstar Spud. Obviously someone who's very funny, but someone who sort of uses that to build a sort of endearing underdog kind of persona for himself, which is his NXT run. Yeah, his NXT run is amazing. It still is. But I don't think anyone was quite expecting. He's had a varied old career in only three years?
It seems like he's had quite a lot to do. The 24/7 stuff. The other thing I really enjoyed about it is that WWE have always had this thing. Vince has always had this thing in particular that if the husband is not on the same quote hotness level as the woman, then there's something amiss there. Like we saw this with the Rusev Lana situation. Is that Vince was just like, wait, you're with that guy? Right, well, we need to break you up on television at every opportunity we can possibly get because
put her with Ziggler. That makes sense.
Exactly.
Put her with Ziggler.
I can't work this one out. So we need to separate her. And I think the same thing happened with Drake. The difference is though, Drake just totally lent into it and was just like, oh, okay, I can now use this as even more fodder for my comedy goofball shtick that I'm doing.
Yeah, just having a man be so willingly cuckolded on television. I mean, like I really like the fact that that his good lady wife now was so up for being like just like he's like love shmuv. If you're not the 24/7 champion, I'll leave you. It's like that's a really kind of like there's a lot being said there about that character. Refusing to have sex with him until he's 24/7 champion. It's just like snapshot of a relationship.
he's now back in NXT. We had it was a rough couple of months for old Drake, and we talked about that at length, on this show throughout the sort of pandemic era that we've had, where he was legit fired, and he posted a very emotional response on Twitter, and that kind of emotional video that he posted effectively got his job back. Like they announced him for the Cruiserweight tournament, and then sort of had to keep him in there, but then turned it into a storyline. And I think you can, people have said what they will say about it. But I think that since, re-signing with NXT, he's done some pretty good stuff down in the black and gold brand.
He's done some amazing stuff. Yeah. I mean, obviously, say what you want about, using a firing in storyline, whether or not, it is what it is. But that was something that me and Laurie talks about a lot on the NXT podcast. We talked about with Pete as well, is just that the lack of clarity in it, like we didn't know whether or not it was real or not. That is what kind of made it feel icky. Like whichever side it went on, like whether he was fired and then rehired because they saw a storyline in him, or was never fired in the first place. Like either one of those is icky. But what was ickier was not knowing and not having the confidence in WWE to say, "Oh, this is dumb." They definitely wouldn't do that. But that being said, like his stuff in the kind of like the mini G1 that they did to crown the Cruiserweight Championship.
Are you saying mini because they're so small?
No. Although now I'm thinking it. Like that, the Escobar reveal, and then like the sort of like kind of mini feud that's been happening there. It's really good stuff and very emotive in a way that kind of wrestling kind of has monopoly over uncomfortable emotions. Like it has that blend of real life, which is just like, well, I can't really look away, and I want what's best for the performer at all times. And yeah, I find something about this utterly compelling. And it does go to show, like, since he was officially rehired by Triple H without reading his contract, he shouldn't have signed that without reading it, especially with WWE. But since that pen hit that paper, his journey has been less interesting, and certainly has been featured less on NXT TV. So say what you want about blending real life and a storyline, especially when it comes to someone being fired. But gosh, it can create some very compelling viewing.